Welcome to The Soft Life. If you're new here, my name is Cara and I'm a move abroad expert. Why am I an expert? Well, I've lived abroad for 10 years. I've lived in 3 continents and I've been to quite a few countries, and I've had to get a lot of visas and set up life in different cities and countries. So that is why I'm an expert. I'm so glad you're here. I'm going to be sipping on my iced coffee. It's a beautiful and hot summer day here. I'm coming to you from Asia Minor, which is modern day Turkey. This is where I split my time between this as being one of my homes and also my home country, which is in North America, the United States. So in this video, what we're going to talk about is lifestyle and how different lifestyle can be when you decide to move abroad. And what we're going to cover specifically is about food and what it feels like when you eat food in the United States versus what it feels like when you eat food when you're in other countries, and not just what you feel like, but what then can happen afterwards to your health. So let's get into it without any further ado. And in these videos, it is going to be simply no edits, so just a one take. So let's get cozy, get comfortable, grab something to drink or munch on, and let's talk about what it's like to live abroad and eat and drink abroad. All right, so if you have ever looked at the map and looked at Europe, for example, Western Europe is what most people in North America are the most familiar with. They're mostly familiar with, the Paris and the London and different places in Germany and Italy and France and Spain and, I said Paris, France, all over France. But so much of the time, those are wonderful countries, wonderful cultures, not dissing. They're also what's called legacy. They've had this beautiful long legacy where they've kind of had this advantage because they were in the spotlight. Think about, I don't know, back in the 1950s when flying became much more common and much more affordable for a lot more people. And so people were flying instead of taking ships across the pond, as they say. They were flying and they were going to these destinations that were and are amazing. And that legacy has really stayed around for all these many decades later. And then we've obviously had different things that have happened around the world that have devastated areas, regions, countries, cities. And we're not going to get into all of the elements that have happened throughout history because, let's face it, bad things happen everywhere and throughout time, which is unfortunate, but it is the way it is. But then there's also the recovery time after an accident or a war or something that's devastated an area, region, or a city. And so that ability to rebuild, or that ability then to bounce back, or even scale more. So that's really, it's an interesting time to be alive right now because there are so many places in the world. When I have conversations with people in America about other parts of the world, they definitely still think that America is number one in everything. And then the places I'm talking about must be like second or third world. And so I'm like, actually, in the last 30 years, they've really elevated themselves. So speaking of food, let's get into food. For example, I like to really focus on Eastern Europe. And many of us knew, like growing up, that there was a lot of different political things and war, things that happened that made the Eastern Europe, those countries, first of all, it was under one, it was Yugoslavia, but all the different cultures and languages that are there are different. They are these beautiful different cultures and languages and cuisines. And so the Balkans, if we want to use that term to identify Eastern European culture, under the Balkans. I think that's a great term to use. That's a familiar term that people of the Balkan countries use. That is more. It helps to identify where we're talking about instead of just former Yugoslavia or just Eastern Europe, which it is geographically, or it is Eastern Europe. So we're going to I'm just going to reference the Balkans for example. So in the Balkans, you have these incredible countries and cultures and foods. A lot of them share a lot of familiarity and similarities with different styles of cooking and baking and preserving foods, and the recipes are incredible. And the one thing that they have in common, like non-negotiably, is that everything is fresh. And so maybe you've heard people talk about eating in Europe, or they go on vacation to Europe and then they come back and they realize, gosh, I ate so much food when I was in Europe and I walked so much and I actually lost weight, or I feel better, so those are the noticeable things. Well, luckily the Balkans still maintain such a fresh cuisine, and everything is made in a way. There's a lot of fermented foods. There's a lot of incredible fermented dairy foods. They eat ruminant animals like lamb, sheep, and cow. Of course, chickens. There's not as much. There is pork, but there's not as much pork in certain countries. But across the board, they just don't have the preservatives. And so you eat these foods and they're literally fresh from the ground or the trees, or made from the animal and from the village. In the city where we live, in Izmir, we say we're going to the village market. In America we use the farmer's market, but it's the same thing. Basically it came straight from the farm, straight from the village, and then it got put on a truck and then it's delivered, and you're taking it home, because there's no preservatives, so you can eat it, and if you don't eat it, it's gonna go bad. And what's culturally normal is to go to the grocery store, or to go to the market once a week or multiple times a week, or even some people go every single day because they're getting that thing that's fresh. So what I love so much about being in this, and so we're in Asia Minor, modern day Turkey, but there's so many similarities and things that, of course, the Balkans and Turkey share, and a lot of similar recipes. And the food is just like, in America, when you eat a piece of fruit or you eat a vegetable, you're like, meh, and that's why so many times things get covered, like salad dressings in America are just like this thick goop. And usually they have so many seed oils in them as well. And people don't even know that they're really consuming, they're not consuming olive oil, which is incredibly wonderful and healthy and has many health benefits and is an ancient food. They don't realize they're consuming soybean oil or canola oil, all of these seed oils that are not only not healthy for you, they're they're damaging. They're damaging over time to our systems. So, consuming things that have, this fresh olives and fresh olive oil helps everything with our digestive system, our brain, everything, our skin. It's incredible. So that's what simply normal here is, going to the market often, and that's just like part of your routine. And the other thing is, we walk everywhere. And again, unlike America, where you have to get in a car and you drive to a grocery store, and then in that grocery store you have boxes and bags of food-like substances, and the periphery of the store is more fresh. But again, when was it picked? When was it on the farm? When was it in the garden? When was it created from, the milk from the cow? And then it was processed, and then it was packaged, and then it was transported on some kind of, truck or something, and then it was delivered then to the store. So you have so much more stuff that goes into the food in America and North America. And this is also in Canada, this is also in parts of Western Europe, that have adopted these kinds of food and eating practices. The bottom line is this isn't food. It's like a food-like substance, because it's not, food was always intended to be fresh. It's not intended to sit on a shelf for, days, weeks, months, etc. And so that's something just I want you to think about with this while you're watching this video is the last time you went to the store, like your cart, was it full of boxes and bags? That's not food. It's not food. If it is in a box or a bag and you have to read the ingredients on the back and decipher, so many people like skip the nutrition label or they read the nutrition label and they skip the ingredients. And for whatever reason, the culture has kind of conditioned Americans to read the nutrition label. But there's really no helpful information in that. It's actually more about the ingredient list. And as you probably know, or maybe you don't, the first ingredient is the most and the last ingredient is the least. So you can see, like, when something starts out with canola oil or soybean oil, you already know what you're consuming it's so toxic for your body. And it's not food. And that's what we have to, I think, uncondition ourselves, is to realize we're not even eating food. And look, I'm from North America. I'm from the United States. I've been in the same boat where I've eaten so many things from box bag, frozen, etc. Have so many preservatives. And the bottom line is they taste good. They taste good because the science that goes into manufacturing these food-like substances that then are promoted for us to eat, we taste them and they trick our brain into going, I want more, I want more. There's nothing rational about eating a bag of chips. There's nothing rational about eating like a bag of Doritos or a can of Pringles, because literally nothing about that is actual food. But the manufacturers and the advertisers do a very good job in convincing us. So we are conditioned. So this is about really unconditioning ourselves and simply going like, what am I doing? What am I consuming? What is my family consuming? So I just want you to think about that the next time you go to the store and you get that huge, that's another thing, a huge giant shopping cart, and it gets filled up. And then people get all these things on sale thinking they're, getting a good deal. And I'm not talking about healthy food is expensive and if you can afford it, or unhealthy food is cheap and that's all you can afford. I'm not talking about that. It is about making choices. It is about making choices, and maybe, looking at wherever you live. And this is something I always want to say, that I don't want people to make this excuse. I live in an apartment in Turkey and I live in a house in America. I have the advantage of the village here, so I can get everything fresh. In America, we have to have like a little small garden. Otherwise, we have to buy everything. So, that's a choice to make, is a container garden inside wherever you live, or a balcony, or even if you have land, to potentially grow things, either in little pots or have like a little plot to create a little garden. So you have fresh herbs, and tomatoes are easy. There are certain things that you can grow that are very easy to save in that way. Of course, that takes time. Time is a currency. So getting back to eating in America and eating in other parts of the world, the bottom line is what we're consuming in America is not food. And then look at the health of the people, and it's only getting worse every single year. And notably, people travel to Europe and so many people say, like, I feel so much better and I exercise. So it's just something to, evaluate about. If you're going to continue to live in America, then you've been conditioned to a certain way of thinking, like driving everywhere, nobody walks, what you're consuming, and that could be food, and that can be advertisement and all sorts of things. So that's just something to be mindful of. But if you were to take the time to really invest in moving abroad, and I'm talking to specifically the woman that is watching this, or the wife, and you're talking to your husband about moving, or maybe you have a family. Basically, this channel is really dedicated to women. So whether you're single, in a relationship, you're married, or you have a family and you're a mom, this video is for you because you play such an interesting role in our society as women, and to want to invest in your health, to want to invest in your beauty, to want to invest in your fitness, and understanding that what you do now obviously compounds and will affect you later. It's like financial advice. It's health advice, right? So it does matter. So this channel is hopefully going to inspire you to consider moving abroad, and if you have any questions, definitely check the description box, because I have a quiz to kind of nudge you a little bit to like help you figure out like what are your non-negotiables. Also, I have a free mini class for you to just kind of go through, and it's going to help you kind of evaluate like what are the things that are important to you, where you live, or if you were to move abroad, and it helps you kind of get a little bit more clarity around if this is right for you. So I hope this has been helpful. Feel free to stick around, watch more videos, and of course, hit the button to stay around, like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Definitely check out the description box, and I am releasing a course, so if you see that link in the description, also check out this Move Abroad course. I've made it so robust for everyone and super affordable, so I'd love to encourage you and invite you to move abroad and live this life and eat healthier and feel better. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.